All right, ladies and gentlemen, friends, family, everyone, welcome to the second Say What on Risky Edges live stream. It is just after 2:30 p.m. Saturday, for August 1st, in the Philippines and in China, which means it is Friday night, July 31st, just after 11:30 p.m. in California. My name is Andres Chang. You are watching Risky Edges. Thank you so much to all of my uh, viewers, subscribers, patrons. Um, Please like this stream if you're watching it now. Uh, Share and sub. And then if you're not watching it live, please also like, share, sub, subscribe, turn on bell notifications. You keep this channel going. I am here once again with the one, the only, the Cantigan nomad himself, Abby. Abby, please say hello.
Hey, Andres, it's always a pleasure to see you. And the Cantiga Nomad, I think that name's catching on. I love it. Good to see
All
you again.
right, all right, all right. Yeah, and you owe it to me. I have made you famous.
I am viral because of you now. Thank you so much.
That's right, man. That's right. Yeah, that's right. And yeah, and just quickly, it's August. Our first conversation that we had together like this, virtual conversation, we've met in real life, of course, was also in August 2024. Here we are,
Wow.
almost 2 years to the date, 2 years to the month, almost 2 years to the date. And then in November, we had our very first Say What? And uh, the first time we talked about me basically. And the second time, we talked about a sad but necessary topic about racism. And now I suggested to you we have another Say What? Because man, there's just so much. The world has gone bonkers. We can't just say America has gone bonkers anymore. We could say that the world has gone bonkers. Maybe America has driven the world bonkers, but we can say that, but we can get into that. But anyway, so Abby, it's great to see you as always. Um, uh, Please introduce yourself and shamelessly plug your business. And you're going to do some new videos too, aren't you? Yeah, just please.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me again. And for your audience out there listening, my name is Abdullah, and I am the founder of MoneyGarden.ca, just like it sounds. MoneyGarden.ca, the virtual assistant agency, and Nomads Academy is a virtual assistant academy for people who are aspiring to launch careers in the VA industry. I'm a Canadian born Antiguan, so Andres, you had already introduced me as the Antiguan nomad. Canadian born Antiguan parentage. My father is from the island of Antigua in the Caribbean, so that is my social location, Antiguan. And yeah, but I live here now in the Philippines where we met 4 years ago. Can you believe that? It's been 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been almost 4 years. So
Wait, was
yeah,
it
so
4 years? It hasn't been
almost,
longer?
almost. I
Okay.
arrived here almost 4 years ago. So I met you soon after arriving in 2022. Yeah. So
2022.
yeah, yeah. So that's when you told me about your channel, and I was learning about the work you're doing in the community and on cyberspace to raise awareness on social, I would say topics related to social justice, social awareness. And yeah, I was always fascinated by the work you do and proud of you, and I still am. Glad that you consider me someone that someone whose opinions, I guess, matter. We'll find out by the end of our conversation if they actually matter. But thanks for
Your
having me.
your your opinions matter, my friend. And Really quickly, the William where we first met, I think they're closed now.
Yeah, I heard
I
that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's too bad. Um, And you know, just for example, you had it was very, because the last time we talked, the say what was about you and something that happened to you and your business and your and one of your clients and
Yeah.
that ugly thing that happened. Um, but now I think there's so much we can talk about, but before we scheduled this, we decided we would talk about the war in Iran, which I have not posted much about on my channel, and there's no reason for that. I'm not avoiding the war in Iran. There's just so much to talk about, but let's take this opportunity, kind of in a way, to to make up for that unintentional oversight on my part. And let's talk about the war in Iran. And some people might say, "Well, you guys are in the Philippines. What's the big deal? I'm a U.S. citizen. Obviously, it concerns me, but I still live in the Philippines. Why am I worried about it?" Some people might say, "Well, you know, Abby, you're Canadian, and you live in the Philippines, so what in the world? You probably have less interest than Andres does, but let's talk about it. There's a lot of there's a lot to talk about. Where should we start? Where should we start?
Well, we can start with say what, because I think that
Say
was,
what?
yeah, you know what I mean? It's like,
I
yeah,
mean,
yeah, I think when we first um, decided that we would go on, camera and have these conversations around this say what concept, where you hear somebody say something that makes you stop your scroll, makes you
yeah,
stop your
yeah.
scroll, pump the brakes, double take, and you're like, what did you just say? Say what?
Say
So
what?
yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah,
so they were,
and if just on that really quick, I mean it's so strange because there are no troops, okay? I shouldn't say just, we're bombing Iran, and we're in this strange situation where we bomb Iran, we cease fire, we break the ceasefire, and we start bombing again, and I have, and war is unpredictable, so we have no idea what what's gonna happen, and just really well, okay, let me tell you just a say what joke to kind of say, say what, remember the Jeffersons,
yes,
George Jefferson, and that was the name of the show, right? The Jeffersons,
yeah,
right?
the TV show back in the 70s.
Yeah, yeah. Well, see, there was an episode where, of course, George got in another scam, or was initiating a scam. That was his thing. It wasn't enough that he was a rich man. He was always uh, trying to find some slimy way to make money. And of course, he did it with some. And this time he does, and he has no scruples, right? So this time he did it with his local church, which was a black church. And then at one point, the pastor he said, I would like to thank somebody today, and the church says, Amen. And he says, and that person is a good person, and the church says, Amen. And the pastor says, and of course, I am speaking of the Reverend George Jefferson. And the church says, say what? Yeah. So,
Yeah.
and okay, so that's funny, but now just kind of a serious thing. This is technical about the war. Russia has this missile called the Oreshnik. I don't know if you know about it, but the U.S. mainstream media is not talking about this at all. This missile, in a sense, is uh, better than a nuclear missile in this sense. First, it's faster. Second, it will destroy a city. Third, there's no nuclear fallout. So imagine Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but without the years of radiation that's left behind and without the cancer rates and etc. So in a way, that might make war easier because you might think, I want to go to war, but not really, because what if it goes nuclear? But now you have this option of, wait a minute, we don't need to go nuclear. We can blow up a city without going nuclear. And the thing is, um, Iran, according to an interview with Colonel Larry Wilkerson, um, they have an even better missile than that Russian Urezhnik that I was just talking about. So it could uh, do more damage, but again without the nuclear fallout. Yeah. So anyway, so this is really nuts. Not to be a downer, but these say what's they're not downers. We're talking about uh, excuse me, they are downers, but necessary to talk about.
Hmm. Yeah, well, war is a downer. People dying is a downer. People suffering collateral damage, injuries. Anything related to fallout. Is a downer. So yeah, it's never good. Um, but I had there's been two moments for me, maybe three, but definitely two moments really stood out for me where I had to just stop my scroll, pump my brakes, do a double take, and say, "Hey, what?" During this conflict, and I think the first time where I really like had that moment was maybe about perhaps it was in April. I want to say it was in April after the conflict had already started. The Strait of Hormuz, they had already closed it off, so the Iranian military blocked the Strait of Hormuz, as we know, the waterway where all the shipping is going to and fro through the Persian Gulf there. And yeah, so that was choking off the world's economy, and they were not allowing anybody through. And then I saw a news article where they had allowed a ship through because it had a Philippines flag and it was going to the Philippines. And I'm like, say what? Nobody in the world, everybody's blocked from transiting, but why are those Filipinos being allowed? I'm like, say what? I'm like, I had to like stop my scroll. I had to like rewind to make sure I caught that point. And why that made me stop my scroll is like in the middle of the war, in the hottest battle, hotly contested battlefield, the world's superpowers, everything that's at stake. They're like, oh no, those Filipinos are okay. Let them go ahead. Those guys are okay. So I'm like looking at that, and I was talking to my wife about it. I'm like, you see, this is one of the reasons why I love living in the Philippines, because Filipinos are generally known to be warm and friendly, hospitable, nurturing, caring, and so forth. All that we know. When I say we, I'm talking about people who are not Filipino. So if you are a Filipino listening to us right now, that's how the world sees you, or at least that's how I see it. Okay. And so yeah, I'm like watching this and I'm like, then I was thinking to myself, wait a minute. So I'm like, say what? I'm like, stop my scroll, and I'm like, brakes are pumped, cars in park, and I'm just like reflecting, thinking, has the Philippines ever attacked anyone? Have you ever heard of like Philippines going to Vietnam, enslaving the Vietnamese people, bringing them back on boats back to the Philippines, engaging for indentured workers or dropping bombs, like invading? Like I'm maybe it has. I'm not an expert. I'm not an expert. I didn't grow up in the Philippines. Maybe there have been incidents that I'm unaware of, but I'm not aware of anything in modern history of Filipinos invading anyone. Yeah, so I'm just like reflecting. I was like, wow, isn't that something that you like say what? They're like letting these Filipinos do. So that was like the first thing that made me stop my scroll, is just how the world views Filipinos. So now you were talking earlier about we're living here in this side of the world, so far removed from it all. How does this affect us? Well, it doesn't matter where you are in the world. We are using oil and oil derivatives, okay, and a lot of it is purchased directly or indirectly through manufacturing of whatever that ends up in whatever country consuming it. So we're all affected by this, right? Cost of gas here. I mean, you live here too. On this, so inflation has been there has been inflation here. Okay, so it's all a direct result of what is happening with the oil being choked off um, in the flow of other commodities, right? Because of the war. So anyway, that was my first moment. I say what? So it's like, wow, I'm so grateful to be living in the Philippines because I feel like I live in the safest place in the world, right? The snakes aside, right? And the crocodiles and maybe the whatever in the ocean if I'm swimming. That aside, like I feel so much safer here, right? And you have things happen in the news, it's not like it's a utopia. It's not a perfect society by far. It's not perfect by far. But do I worry about being bombed or being attacked or being involved in some kind of conflict or anything like that? No. So yeah, that was my first moment, and then my second moment: stop the scroll, pump the brakes, park the car, double take. Was when on more than one occasion. The first time I heard it, I was like, say what? When I heard President Trump talking about one of the objectives of the war because he's being challenged. If you watch the news over the last 3 months, we're in August now, so like July, June, and May, or even going right back to the very beginning when they were asking him, what is the purpose? Why are you, what are the goals? What are the intentions, right? Initially, the intention was not to open the Strait of Hormuz. The Strait of Hormuz being closed and blocked was a action that was taken by the Iranian military in response to what was happening, right? And then as weeks went by, one day I heard President Trump talking about one of the objectives is to open the Strait of Hormuz. I'm like, say what? Wasn't that already open before all this? What do you mean the objective is to open the Strait of Hormuz? It was already open for commerce. Everything was flowing freely. And then the reason being because we need free flowing commodities. We don't need the world's economy and so forth being held hostage because the Iranians are blocking it. I'm listening to this. I'm like, bro, it was open before already. And it's not just me. I'm listening to commentators on all sides, even in the Republican Party, are saying this. It's not just me giving my opinion here. I am simply saying out loud what everybody else is saying. Like, say what? You're talking about the objective is to open the Strait of Hormuz when your action is what caused it to be closed in the first place, which raises a whole other set of questions as to why. And that can be debated, for the next, for all of history. We can all debate what are the real reasons why. But if you're going to sit here and tell me that the objective of what they're doing, and it's still going on, as we're talking right now, there's still bombs dropping. Strait of Hormuz is still closed. It's August the 1st, 2026 here in the Philippines. The Strait of Hormuz is closed. And this guy's talking about the objective of their military campaign is to open the Strait of Hormuz. Hey, what? Like, man, it's like, what are you even talking about? Like, it doesn't even make sense. So it's like, whatever, man. So just, at the end of the day, how it affects us is what matters, right? It's not like you or I can go to the White House and, push buttons and give orders and like do anything, right? There's nothing we can really do about it. We can protest. We can stand at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and just scream over the fence. But it doesn't matter what we do. Nothing we do is going to change, anything that's going on there, but it affects us. So for me, I look at these things like, okay, how does this affect us? How does this affect us? And how do we respond to that? Because we've got bills to pay, We've got a business to run if you're a business owner. You've got workers that you have to be concerned about if you're a business owner with workers like I am. Okay. And if you're dealing with other business owners or other people whose livelihoods are directly affected by all of this, which my business is. So it directly affects me. It affects everybody on a personal level, but in a business sense, it also affects me. So because of that, I feel obligated to talk publicly about it, whether it's here on this channel with you or if it is in my own channel. You mentioned earlier, like we are doing our own marketing campaigns and our own, academy, teaching people about things and the impact of global economics on your business if you're a virtual assistant requires you to pay attention to what's going on in the news. You don't have to have a political leaning, Republican, Democrat, left, right, whatever. You don't have to have a political leaning to pay attention to what's going on. You could be in the center with your political point of view or have no point of view at all. You may be completely confused or indifferent about the politics of it all. But when you go to the grocery store to buy a bag of concerned about, because if there's too much month at the end of the money, it would be prudent, even for a layperson, to pay attention to what the heck is going on, so that you can keep your own priorities moving ahead. Everyone's got their own goals that they're working towards. So from that point of view, I think it is relevant and important for everybody to be paying attention and to try and make some sense out of it and to understand what is going on, why, and how it affects us, so that you know what you can do to keep your own agenda going forward. So anyway, yeah, so that was the second moment when I was like, say what, when he was talking about opening the Strait of Hormuz, and it's like, doesn't even make any sense. And then the last moment was more recently. It was maybe in the last week or so. One of the goals of one of their objectives is to. Okay, I'm listening to that. That to me is like not stopping my scroll. But when he was talking about then if they had a nuclear weapon, imagine if they had used it and they may just fire that bomb towards Israel. So he made this comment about the Iranians having a nuclear weapon and then using that and dropping a bomb on Israel and the effect that would have on Israel, and Israel would cease to exist. So when I heard that, I'm like, yeah, that would be terrible. I don't want that to happen. There's only been one country in the history of humanity that's ever used an atomic bomb. And I'm like, you're trying to tell me I should be concerned about those guys over there when you, America, are the only ones to ever actually have used those atomic bombs. Right? So right. I'm like, what are you even talking? Like, what are you even talking about? And is that to say that it's okay for whatever other nation, however you feel about them, right? I don't care intentionally and with aided and abetted by. So anyway, so yeah, so all these things is like makes me stop, and it's like I don't. I'm at a point right now, Andres, where I'm not going to say I don't care, because I care, but I don't allow myself to get carried away in my emotions about any of these things, because I have accepted the fact that none of these so-called politicians act with the best interest of people in mind, especially when they are submitting tax returns talking about they just made $2 billion in income, right, as they are a sitting president. Okay, when I see this sort of stuff, and not to single out, well, I guess I am singling out Donald Trump, but it's the most recent, most egregious example, right, of a political leader enriching themselves, right? We have had similar history here in the Philippines. I can remember as a boy growing up in Canada, I didn't know much about Philippines. I hadn't had any Filipino friends, but it was in the news back in the era of the Marcos regime, the Marcos Senior regime. I can just remember as a boy seeing the news of this lady that held all these shoes. Right? I found it funny. I found it funny at the time. I didn't understand the politics of it. I just found it funny that this queen, to me, she seemed like this queen who was like being spoiled by her king, and she just went around with all these shoes, and they were rich, and then they took from the poor, and there's all these poor people, but then she had all this expensive clothing and shoes. I had no idea about the politics behind it. I had no idea what it. I was looking at that. I'm like, wow, it's like kind of sad, but you're the one in charge. You have all those poor people, but you're like living rich with all these like shoes, and you know who I'm talking about, right? I'm talking about Imelda Marcos, right?
Right.
So
Right.
I had no political opinion of. I was a child, right? So even as a child, looking at that, you have like millions of people in poverty. Then you have the ruler is like, rich, enriched. So this isn't an American thing. This isn't a Filipino thing. I just saw Ted Cruz there in U.S. Senate, the U.S. Senator there, Ted Cruz, talking about, how these what do you call them, dictators and so forth, enrich themselves on the backs of the poor, and now there they are, and he was talking about Vladimir Putin. Like, okay, you're trying to say Vladimir Putin is a dictator enriching himself when your own your own Republican Party leader just sent in a tax return of $2 billion of profit off of mostly cryptocurrencies trading that was done. And it's like, say what? There's another one. Say what? You're pointing the finger at all these dictators around the world when your leader just submitted his tax return showing a $2 billion off of crypto trading. But come on, man. Right? And it's universal. When I see universal, I mean like pick a country and you can have a story about corruption. So I'm just like listening to this stuff and like, okay, you know what? If the price of things is going up as a result of all this stuff, what do I need to do? How do I need to adjust myself? If I am a virtual assistant agency owner, if I've got VAs in my team that's concerned about their incomes, if I've got clients now, which is what I want to talk about, is the clients, business owners, people that live in places like the United States, for example, because you're from the US, or Canada, where I'm from, where a lot of the clients come from, that Filipino VAs, since we live in the Philippines. I don't know where your viewers are in the world, but if we're talking about the virtual assistant agency industry, okay, a lot of the clients that VAs serve tend to be in the United States or Canada, North America. It's quite common. All right. So if I'm in that industry and the price of everything's going up and I need to earn more income and I'm concerned about that, well, I'm here to say today that this war is good for your business. This war is good for your business. When I say it's good for your business, what I mean to say, people dying is not good for anybody's business, but I'm just talking about dollars and cents and economics of it. If you are in a business that is rising because of the effects of a war that is happening, and you are working in that industry and you're losing sleep or concerned about what does this mean for me? Well, when you have business owners in the United States where the cost of everything is going up and you want to keep your business going, you want to look for ways to cut costs. Okay? And one of the ways that you can cut costs, here's a shameless plug, hire a VA from the Philippines. Moneygarden.ca, we provide. Right? So I'm just saying, like, I'm being silly there, but what I'm really saying is that if the cost of everything is going up and you live in the United States or Canada and you're trying to keep your business going and you want to cut costs, well, labor costs by outsourcing to other countries, be it Philippines, India, Africa, Central America, wherever it is, like wherever, insert country here, right? But we live in the Philippines, so we can talk about here. It's great for us, right? More business owners are trying to cut costs and save money. So that war that's happening right now and the inflation that is happening as a result of that is good for us. So if you're a virtual assistant listening to this right now, or a VA agency owner, this is the time to turn up your marketing. This is the time to cast your net wider. This is time to do more outreach and talk to more people and say, hey, I know you're feeling the pain because your costs are going up. Let's help you by bringing your costs down and outsourcing. And then that's it. So it's really pretty straightforward concept. Now that was already happening before the war because outsourcing to the Philippines is common and it's been going on for years. The VA industry is booming here, whether it's a BPO call center or if it's freelancers, right? You've got. I was just watching a report recently from someone that was talking about 10 million workers in the BPO industry alone. When you add freelance VAs on top of that, you're talking about 20 million plus in a population of how many people here are in some way working in this industry. It's a huge, it's a large percentage of the population. But if you are in that industry and you're like, oh my gosh, how's this going to affect me? Well, I'm not losing any sleep over it. When it comes to the business side of things, I'm like, yeah, this is good for business, which is something else that I have observed about this particular President Trump and his followers is that the decisions that are made, those who benefit financially from the decisions that are made tend to be the ones that cheer the loudest for him. Right? So if your priority is earning money, growing your business, and increasing your wealth financially, and you're paying attention to the decisions that are being made and you ride the wave, well, then your bank account balance is likely to increase. Right? Now, if people die in the process of those decisions being made, well, then that's something different now. That's something different. Going back to we talked before, and I think the last one, you and I have talked about the slave trade, right? The transatlantic slave trade when Europeans were enslaving Africans. Yeah, if you own a sugar plantation, it's great for business. Oh yeah, I'm owning a sugar plantation. Yeah, slavery is great for business. I own a cotton plantation. Oh yeah, right? Whatever, tobacco. Oh yeah, great for business. Right? But if you're the slave getting thrown off the slave ship because you died en route, well, it's not good for those people, the common people, right? So I'm not talking about this from that point of view. I'm simply saying, right, that if you owned a sugar plantation and then the government just said you're going to get free labor for the next 300 years and you happen to own a sugar plantation, well, chances are you're going to be, selling more sugar or having a higher profit margin on your sugar sales, right? So that's it. That's all I'm saying. So I've talked nonstop for how long now? I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. That's okay. No, I mean, yeah, that's why I got you on here. And no, yeah, I mean it's an interesting, you see, for us, it's a very interesting dynamic for those of us who work online, like yourself and myself and so many other people, and we get paid in US dollars. Well, the peso, I mean, look, you remember when the peso was 50, right? Yeah. And now it's 61. And it's a very interesting dynamic because those of us who have that privilege, this situation has given us more of a privilege because we effectively have more money now that the peso has dropped in value. But for ordinary Filipinos who are not getting paid in dollars, but in getting paid in pesos, and who have those ridiculously low wage jobs. I mean, some of them, they get on their motorcycle, they commute for over an hour. Minimum wage here is between 500, 600 pesos a day. Now, I don't know how much, like at these expensive, maybe like high-end restaurants, they maybe make a little more. Um, I don't know how much it makes for them. I don't know how much uh, they've got to stretch their budgets as if they're not being constantly stretched anyway. Um, but at the same time, the OFWs who send home remittances, that helps their family more. So it's when the peso drops in value, it hurts Filipinos living and working here, but it helps the families who have OFWs getting paid in US dollars, or who transfer their money in whatever country into US dollars first and then send it back. And then their families make more money here. So it's a it's a very interesting dynamic, economically speaking, that you were saying. And the other thing politically is that I don't know if you remember, but when Duterte was president, something very interesting was happening. Um, there was a lot of dispute, and this will connect to what I'm going to say about the war, or the current U.S. bombing in Iran. Um, there was a dispute, a naval dispute of waters, and an international legal body ruled, oh, this body of water, it belongs to the Philippines, does not belong to China. Excuse me. And but Duterte, as president, he didn't push it. He didn't enforce it. He didn't tell China, hey, that's ours. Okay. And that was because he wanted Chinese money in the Philippines. Now, what does this have to do with the war in Iran? I think, I think, in my humble opinion, the U.S. is such a destabilizing force globally that the Philippines needs to stop getting its oil from the U.S. and the Middle East and get it from Russia and from Canada, bypassing the Strait of Hormuz completely, and all of their material needs, they can like parts, like car parts, they can get it from China, again bypassing the Strait of Hormuz, and everything else they can get from Japan, again completely bypassing the Strait of Hormuz. And China knows this. Russia knows this. Just an example. Is there GSM taxis in Bohol? You live in Bohol, right?
I live in Bohol, yeah.
Have you seen the GSM taxis?
No, it's all tricycles here. No, only
Okay.
tricycles.
Well, all over in Mindanao and in Luzon and in Cebu, I think also there are, and I use them all the time, GSM taxis. They are completely electric, and they're made, get this, they're made in Vietnam. They're not made in China. These are, these are high quality cars. You would think they are Chinese cars. Nope, they are made in Vietnam. And now they're taxing everyone around here. Okay, so, but getting back to the war and the things you were talking about and the justifications for it, it's Iran part, excuse me, it's Iraq part. It's so crazy, Abby. You know, I don't know if you remember, but during the Iraq war, people were saying Iran is next. This is just the beginning. We're gonna go to Iran. We're gonna go to war with Iran, and here we are, uh, over 10 years after the Iraq war has ended. Fact check me on the exact number of years, but we are at war with Iran. And I personally don't like calling it a war because there are no troops involved. Uh, are people dying? Yes. And I don't want to make light of that. That's serious. But it's part of the strangeness that I mentioned earlier of this war. We're not invading with any ground forces at all. we're bombing them, and then we stop bombing them, and then we start bombing them again, and it keeps going like that. And the thing is, in the Iraq War, they said, oh, in 2003, we have to take out Saddam because he has nuclear weapons. Well, we know for a fact that we knew for a fact that Iraq did not have nuclear weapons. We knew for a fact that Iran had no nuclear weapons because of the Obama deal, which Trump uh, tore up uh, when he came into office. The religious leader of Iran, uh, he issued a fatwa against nuclear weapons. Basically, in Islam, he said it is haram, it is a sin to even make these weapons, for them to even exist. Okay. So first we're saying it sounds so much like Iraq. First, we're saying we've got to bomb Iran because of their nuclear weapons, because we have to give their people freedom. Um, and interestingly, Chris Hedges has pointed out you cannot liberate. This is different but related. You cannot liberate the women of the Taliban with industrial weapons. You cannot dropping bombs on the women of Taliban is not going to liberate them. So the same thing here. First it's they've got nukes. Then we got to give them freedom. Then we got to liberate the women. And now, but here's the strange thing: there was no buildup. Remember, there was a buildup to the Iraq War. 9/11 happened. We went into Afghanistan, and then they built up the case to go to a war with Iraq. 2 years after 9/11, we're at war with Iraq, and then one day out of the blue, no buildup, no justification, we're bombing Iran. Say what?
Oh yeah, I mean you can go back to the National Security Advisor, what was her name, Tulsi Gabbard, when she said there was no evidence that Iran was anywhere close to building a nuclear weapon. This is Trump's pick. Trump picked her to be. I don't remember her post. I believe she was the National Security Advisor. I forget which position she held in the U.S. Intelligence community, but she was like a top-ranking official who said that there is no evidence of any such weapon being made. And then next thing you know, we're being told that they're going there to stop us from making a nuclear weapon. It's just ridiculous, right? Which raises the question of why, if there is no such weapon, then what is the reason, right? Because they lied about Iraq, right? They lied about that.
Right.
That could be true now.
Right.
So
right.
Why are they lying again?
Right. Okay. There's a lot of we can't get into people's heads, but we can speculate based on evidence of why certain things are happening. Okay, for example, in the first Iraq War in the 90s, Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, and we can speculate that the first Bush, expelled Iraq from Kuwait because we wanted to keep the oil flowing. I mean, is this real life, or are we reading the Dune novels? Have you read Dune?
No, but you know what? I remember. Glad you brought that up about Iraq and Kuwait, because I can remember back then. So I had known this one before, and then when the first Persian Gulf War happened, I'm like, hey, what? I remember I had a moment like that. They were like, we're liberating the Kuwaitis from Iraq. I'm like, wasn't Kuwait part of Iraq once upon a time? Right? If anybody is fact checking our conversation, there's one that you can go and fact check. Kuwait was once part of Iraq, right? And then you're trying to tell me that Kuwait's being liberated from Iraq when it was always part of Iraq. How did Kuwait become separated from Iraq in the first place? There's another little fact checking mission for people who actually want to know the truth. and the facts that Kuwait was once part of Iraq before the First World War. I believe it was during or shortly after the First World War, where it was annexed by the British, right? And then now we're talking about they're being liberated when they were the ones that took the land from them in the first place. It's kind of like the First Nations people, of which I am one, Ojibwa First Nation, Canada. For those of you who are,
Your mom is Ojibwa.
yeah, my mom, my grandmother. So, um, these people, these Europeans, come to America, come to Canada, come to the Caribbean, annihilate all the First Nations people, right? Import Africans. You want to talk about, we're not here to talk about immigration, but that was another, like, say what? They're talking about getting rid of the immigrants. It's like you imported.
We could do another whole say.
Illegally,
We could do another whole say what on ICE. Oh my gosh. Anyway, but keep
okay, well,
going.
that's a different topic, but I'm just saying, like, on the topic of say what in these current set of leaders, right? Talking about they're liberating people, they're liberating the Iranian people. You are the same people that took the land from the First Nations people in the United States and Canada, imported millions of Africans illegal. You spearheaded the biggest illegal immigration scheme in the history of the planet. Okay, and then you want to tell me that you are the moral authority to go anywhere and liberate anybody from anything, and you're the one, and then you're the only one that's ever dropped a bomb on anyone, and then you lied about Saddam Hussein having weapons of mass destruction, and then Tulsi Gabbard, your pick, Donald Trump, you picked her to sit there and give you intelligence, and then she goes in front of Congress and says there's no such weapons, and then now you're trying to convince us that there are, and there's still no evidence of it, by the way. All this stuff I'm listening to, I'm like, these people are completely full of it, and they always have been. They always have been. Now, I am a person that has been displaced. I am a First Nation, Ojibwa. My father is African, descendant of the slaves, born in Canada, brought to America, a Buffalo Soldier. That's me. Okay, having no home. I am displaced, right? And these people, if you want to liberate somebody, how about you liberate the First Nations people and the Africans that are there in the United States right now? You want to send people wherever you want to liberate anyone. Why don't you liberate those people that are in your own country? But no, you want to go around the world, and for what? To control the oil. We know that is to control the natural resources. That's all this is about. We know this. It's why they have been there the entire time. That is the whole Israel project. The whole project of Israel is that. That's what it is. We know this. The world knows this. Right? Now, you may have masses of people who don't know, right? But this is 2026, where information age of the internet is creeping up on us, right? So now you have groundswell of common people calling out the BS, right? Where we are live right now, and anybody in a corner of the world could be hearing us talking, information is being shared, right? So, end of the day, Andres, because we've been here talking for almost an hour, how does it affect us, and what do we do about it? Going back to your conversation about the peso, right, and how that directly affects us here, right? So that's one of the reasons why I launched my academy. Now, I'm not here to plug my academy. I'm here to say that one of the reasons why I did that is because I'm a foreigner living in somebody else's country. I think I should contribute something instead of just extracting the resources, like what happened to my people in Canada, First Nations. Foreigners showed up, extracted the resources, pushed us out, and left us with nothing. Now I'm here now, and I would like to try and offer something, right? Which is a way that you can earn to get those US dollars, to get those Canadian dollars, to get those euros, whatever it is, Australian dollars, Singapore dollars, whatever, wherever your client lives and you are a Filipino VA, okay, for the same reasons you talked about. Because if you're not an OFW, an outside foreign worker living in wherever you are, Hong Kong, the Middle East, Canada, wherever you are, sending money back home, remittances in the billions of all this money being sent back home, okay? If you're that common worker, and even if you are an educated professional, like an engineer, a teacher, police officer, right? Even those workers are earning barely enough to live to a standard of a comfortable, we would call a middle class, what they refer to as a middle class standard of living, right? And so now, when you have the opportunity to earn in these other currencies, well, then how is that going to work? Well, if you are a virtual assistant freelancer, that's a way that you can do that without leaving your home. When I say leaving your home, I don't mean riding the Jeep or the tricycle or the bus to the office. I'm talking about leaving the country in an airplane as an OFW, right? It's why you have like it's in the millions. When I was like doing my research today, we were like meeting. I'm like, my gosh, I gotta like do some like homework right before I open my mouth. It's like it's in the. I didn't like. I knew there was like thousands of virtual assistants, freelancers. I didn't know it's actually in the millions. And this was a study that was like commissioned by somebody in the government. So that's where those statistics are coming from. It's like, wow, it's a lot of people, man. So it's like, okay, great. So
Did you say millions of freelancers or millions
yes,
of VAs specifically?
freelancers. Well, a freelancer and a VA